Have you ever wondered what it would be like if more legendary Pokemon got regional variant forms outside of just the legendary birds that we saw in Pokemon Sword and Shield? Well, I have, because that's a really cool idea, and I've made a couple of videos looking at what it could be like if more legendaries got these forms, and what those forms could look like. Well, today I am here to do that once more, and in particular, I have decided to focus on the legendary beasts this time around. Now, a lot is going on currently with the legendary beasts. We currently have a paradox form of Suicune, and possibly are going to be getting one for Entei and Raikou as well, and while that definitely is a thing, they're also very different to traditional regional forms as well, obviously, and so I feel like a standard regional variant form for these Pokemon could very much still be up for grabs, or at the very least, it is definitely still worth looking at what that could be like. So that's what we're going to be doing in today's video. It's going to be a lot of fun, so with that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. As you probably know, the three legendary beasts come from the Johto region, which is based on and heavily inspired by Japan, which is also the theme of today's amazing sponsor, Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. Every month, these two will send you boxes that are packed with authentic Japanese treats that literally come straight from Japan. This month, the themes for the boxes are Okinawa Seaside Snackin' for Tokyo Treat, and has, amongst other things, cookies and cream flavored Kit Kats, and frankly, I really shouldn't have to say any more than that, cause that pretty much explains itself. Sakura Co.'s theme, meanwhile, is Heritage of Nico, and offers more traditional treats like this gummy marshmallow fish. And the Sakura Co. boxes also come with a piece of tableware each month too, and this month, it's this beautiful tablecloth. Trying all of these treats is honestly super fun, which I can say from experience, so if you would like to give it a try for yourself, you can follow the link in the description below to pick up a box today. And when you do, and you also use the code HOOPS at checkout, you're also going to be able to get $5 off of your first box. And that also directly supports the channel as well, so it's like the ultimate win-win. So again, be sure to check that out with the link below, it would be super appreciated, and a big thank you to Tokyo Treat and Sakura Co. for supporting the channel. Okay, so when it comes to creating regional variant forms for the legendary beasts, there is a lot that you need to consider, because everything that is going on with these Pokemon in terms of their typings, which is what you change in a regional variant, is very purposeful, and it has to do with the origin of these Pokemon themselves. As you may know, the legendary beasts were created when they were revived from Pokemon that perished in the burned tower when it was struck by lightning and burned to the ground. Entei as a fire type represents the fire that burned the tower, Raikou as an electric type represents the lightning that struck the tower, and Suicune as a water type represents the sudden rainfall that put it out. So these Pokemon are not just randomly typed, and therefore when giving these Pokemon new types with regional variants, I knew that I wanted those new types to be purposeful as well, and not just be completely random and disconnected. And so I thought, as a way of making these new types more purposeful, that I could give these new regional variant legendary beasts an origin story of their own, just like the original legendary beasts also have. I think this would be a really cool way to do it if we ever did get this sort of thing in an actual Pokemon game, and I also think it's a legitimately possible way that Game Freak would do it as well. So along with these new forms that I'm about to show you shortly, there is also an origin story that I need to tell you for how these regional variant legendary beasts came to be. Once upon a time, there was a village that rested at the foot of a massive mountain. One day, three Pokemon that lived in the village and were well known to the townsfolk ventured off towards the mountain. However, soon thereafter, a blizzard of tremendous proportions completely engulfed the mountain and the village, covering both in a blanket of snow. The following morning, when the blizzard subsided, the three Pokémon were nowhere to be found within the village, and no one from the village ever saw them again. Unfortunately, it is believed that these three Pokémon perished on the mountain that day as a result of the storm. However, following this event, reports began to surface of large beasts, unlike anything the villagers had ever seen, roaming the mountain that sat next to this village. While no one knows where they came from, these beasts are believed by the villagers to be the reborn spirits of the three Pokémon who perished on the mountain that fateful day, and now watch over the Pokémon and people who traverse the mountain, making sure that they all have safe travels and that no one meets the same fate as them. So that is the background and origin of how these Pokémon came to be, and I imagine if this sort of thing was in an actual game, it would basically involve you investigating and interviewing people from around this town to find the location of these legendary beasts on the nearby mountain, and then you'd have to go to the mountain and explore around, and you'd find them in different locations on the mountain, as well as at potentially different times of day too. So it would sort of be like a treasure hunt or a scavenger hunt almost, where you have to use the clues from the villagers to be able to locate the Pokémon on the mountain. With that said though, let's go ahead and see what these new variant legendary beasts actually look like. Starting first with Suicune. Suicune in this form takes on the rock type instead of the water type from its previous form, and this is because, just like the original legendary beasts, as I said before, the typings of all of the variants also connect back to their origins as well, and the rock type on Suicune here is representative of the mountain that those three Pokemon climbed where they ultimately met their fate. As far as a design perspective goes though, the reason why I decided to give Suicune the rock type in particular is because I just thought it would work well with its design, since it already has a giant gem on its forehead, which obviously, as you can see here, can very easily be translated into a rocky formation. That rocky formation is also meant to represent the mountain that these Pokemon climbed and perished and were reborn on itself, and honestly, I think this turned out really, really good. Not only does it work really well with the story, and I think having a story like this as the origin point for these kinds of Pokemon would be really cool, but I also just think taking Suicune as a water type and making it into a rock type, which is almost the exact opposite, is one of the coolest things about regional variants in general, and exploring these kinds of drastic type changes is something that I would definitely love to see. And speaking of drastic type changes, this is what regional variant Entei looks like. Now, this form of Entei has taken on the Ice type as opposed to the Fire type of its previous form, and as you might be able to guess, this is because it represents the blizzard that engulfed the mountain and the village on that fateful day that ultimately took out the three Pokemon from the story. Similar to Suicune, placing the Ice type on Entei in particular did have something to do with just giving it a drastic type change, which would allow for a greater change in terms of its appearance, which is obviously the main appeal of regional variants. However, there is a bit more going into the design philosophy of how Entei turned out visually, as well as giving it the Ice type has also made it a more graceful looking Pokemon as opposed to the strong, powerful looking Pokemon that the Fire type version of this legendary appears as. Now, that is definitely intentional because it obviously allows this Pokemon to once again be all the different, not just in terms of its design and appearance, but also personality-wise compared to its original form, and therefore maximizes the value of it as a regional variant. However, we have not taken Entei's powerful appearance and just thrown it aside, because what we've basically done here is swapped the personalities of Entei and Suicune in their variants, which is why this regional variant Suicune that we just talked about previously is also a little bit more tough and powerful looking compared to the more graceful look of its original counterpart. So those are the first two members of this legendary trio, and now it is finally time to take a look at the third member. This is my regional variant of Raikou. Now, this Raikou, rounding out the story and rounding out this trio of Pokemon, is a fighting type compared to the electric type of its original form. This fighting type represents the fighting spirit of these three Pokemon that unfortunately perished in the story that ultimately caused them to be born again to ensure that all people in Pokemon are safe and kept from harm while traveling on this mountain. Together, the villagers call these three the Beasts of the Mountain. And with Raikou in particular, it once again had to do with giving it a type that was definitely different to its original type, but also something that fit in with the story. And while I've got to be honest, trying to find a third type that would correlate with what happened in the story and something that actually made sense was somewhat challenging, but I believe the fighting type does a good job of not only fitting in there, but also working as a good type for a regional variant of this Pokemon. Another key point about this Pokemon's design, though, that's actually a lot of fun, has to do with its green coloration. Now, you might think that green on a fighting type is kinda strange, but it actually has a very distinct purpose, because it's actually a reference to the character known as Battle Cat from Masters of the Universe, aka where He-Man comes from. In case you're not aware, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe was a media franchise that was popular in the 80s, and it spanned toys and cartoons and stuff like that, and Battle Cat was a member of that, and it was very distinctly green in color, and since its name is also Battle Cat, that just works perfectly with the fighting type too, so it makes for a really, really nice reference, even if it seems a little bit off on the surface in terms of this Pokemon's fighting type. And honestly, those kinds of extra little details within a design can truly make it all the better as far as I'm concerned if there's a reference or extra connection in there somewhere. So I really like that we were able to integrate this kind of thing into this Raikou's design while still making it work with everything else that we already had planned for it. And I say we because I definitely need to mention that all of the artwork of these designs that you've seen in this video was drawn by my very good friend Oscar Belmonte. If you watch my videos, you definitely should know who he is by now, and you should definitely check him out with the links in the description because he does great work, obviously. With that said though, that is pretty much my concept, both visually and in terms of the lore, of what regional variant legendary beasts could be like if they did actually happen. Even though we've got a paradox form of one of these Pokemon for Scarlet and Violet, and could be getting paradox forms of the other two as well, I definitely think there's still room to give them regional variants in the future, and there's obviously potential for something great as we've shown here, so if this is something you would like to see, and if you liked the video in general, please be sure to give this video a like if you enjoyed it, and subscribe for more if you're new. Also, be sure to let me know down in the comments below all of your thoughts, and let me know what abilities you would give these legendaries, or what signature moves you might give them as well, because there's definitely some room to add on to these Pokemon's concepts as well. With that said though, I will be back with another new video very soon, and in the meantime, if you would like to support the channel further, consider checking out my Pokemon remixes on Spotify as well as other music streaming platforms, because yes, I do create Pokemon remixes, and listening on those streaming platforms greatly supports the channel right back here, so feel free to either follow the links in the description or look me up on any one of those platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, etc. And honestly, any support that you can provide there is very much appreciated and helps the channel right back here. Thank you guys as always once again for watching this video, and once again, until that next one, as always, I will smell you guys later.